Learning how to handle disagreements will completely change your life because so many people ruin friendships and relationships because they don't know this one simple psychological concept. Like imagine you had a girlfriend, or imagine your girlfriend or wife, your ideal partner, and you get into a simple argument and you break up. Well, if you just knew how to argue better, then that could have been avoided and this person could have completely changed your life. Maybe that was your soulmate, right? So this concept is so important to know. And it's a psychological concept. It's helped me, and not just me, it's helped a lot of people because it's from psychology, right? It's not my idea. It's called the Rogerian argument. So this is from Carl Rogers, the psychologist Carl Rogers. Here's how it goes. Basically, I don't move on to the next point until I can say your argument in a way that you agree. And you don't move on to the next point until you can say my argument in a way that I agree. So essentially, we're making the argument for the other person. And this helps because it helps it not escalate. It doesn't get to the point where it's like you can't handle the truth and you're yelling at each other. Instead, you're making the argument for the other person because the goal of an argument is not to win. You don't want to just win the argument, because if you win the argument, then you still have to deal with the person who lost the argument. Like, that person will hate you if you're constantly just trying to win arguments. You're not trying to see their perspective. You're not trying to handle it in a way that gets to the truth. But if you're more committed to the truth than you are to winning the argument, then you'll actually learn something. You'll actually get something out of it, and you won't put down the other person in a way that makes them feel defeated. Because at the end of the day, it's a relationship or a friendship. It's a two-way street. Like, you can't just constantly try and win arguments. It's not about power. It's about compromise. It's about learning from the other person's perspective while still saying what you have to say. Because the other thing that people do is they bottle up their emotions. They don't express what they have to say. But what you have to do is you have to say what you mean, but also consider the other person's side. You have to say what you mean in a way that's not hurtful. You have to express yourself without being too harsh. So there's a concept of minimal necessary force. So basically, you express yourself in as much detail as you have to without being without being too harsh, without putting the other person down. It's minimal necessary force. So there is some sort of necessary force, because if you disagree with someone and you just bottle it up, then over time it's just getting pushed down. And then one day, everything that you push down will just come up. So it's really important to be able to handle arguments in this way. So I'll give you an example of like how to handle an argument. We're going to use the Rogerian argument. So let's say that you think um, LeBron is better than Jordan, and I think Jordan is better than LeBron. But if we run a Rogerian argument, I would almost make your argument for you. I'd be like, yeah, listen, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, LeBron has more points. You think he's a better passer. You think he's a better rebounder. You think he has a more extensive career. Is that fair to say? And then if you agreed with what I had to say, then I would move on. Then we would move on to my point, and you would essentially make my argument for me. So it's like you still express yourself. You still have to say what you want, right? But you don't put the other person down. I'm not going to be like, oh, LeBron, nah, like LeBron's nothing like Jordan. He doesn't even compare to Jordan. You mean like, I don't know if you've seen these arguments on like sports TV, but they'll like put down the other person. But this isn't how you handle an argument in a way that like doesn't ruin the relationship. Like if you're arguing with like your girlfriend or something, and you argue like that, good luck is all I'll say. Like, that is not going to lead to a healthy relationship. You have to actually listen to what they have to say and almost make the argument for them, like I did in that LeBron Jordan example. And this is like so key to relationships. And I wish I knew this sooner, because it would have avoided a lot of just headache and unnecessary arguments that I had. One thing I do want to mention though is like, it's very hard to argue with someone who doesn't want to listen to you at all. So if like they don't agree to this like Rogerian argument, or like having a simple compromise, then there will be some people that's like, it's almost a lost cause. Like, they're committed to misunderstanding you. But a lot of people will be open to doing something like this, and it could avoid a lot of unnecessary arguments. That's how you have the Rogerian argument. And again, you want to speak up for yourself, because you also don't want to bottle things up. You don't want to push things down until they just explode. You want to be able to talk through things. If you feel uncomfortable in how someone handled something, you can bring it up, and you can do it in a way that's not hurtful. You're not like putting the other person down. And another there's a couple things you could say when you're bringing up an argument. You're like, hey, I know you probably didn't mean it this way, but this is how I felt. So talk about like your feelings, instead of giving the other person an identity that like they are this terrible person and like they always do this. The more you give someone an identity, the more they'll push back against you. So if you're like, yo, you're a terrible person, you always do this, then like obviously they're going to want to defend themselves. But if you're like, hey, you know, I didn't really like how you did this, and this is I want to bring it up. And listen, I know you probably didn't mean it this way, but this is how I interpreted it. Then that will be a much healthier argument than like putting someone down and just like being like, you've always been like this. Why do you do this? Like that's not the way to handle an argument. And trust me, I've been there. I've said that. I've said those things before. But it's like the more you can recognize that. Oh, my car just turned off. But the more you can recognize that it's better to handle the disagreement in a way that considers the other person's opinions, and you almost make the argument for them, the better your relationships will be, the better your friendships will be, and the better your life will be, because you'll be a lot less stressed. Like it is so stressful to have an argument that's like that didn't need to be this intense argument but then becomes that. Like that is so stressful to have. And you don't want to get to the point where like you're bottling things up and then you just explode, and then you get so mad because you haven't spoken up. But what you want to do is you want to find that middle ground where you're still speaking up for yourself, but you're also considering what the other person has to say. So that's how you handle arguments. I hope this video is helpful. This is like completely helped me, so I hope it helps you as well. And listen, it's not easy to handle arguments. It's not easy. At first, you're gonna feel uncomfortable. You're gonna be like, you're gonna want to say the things how you've handled arguments in the past. But even though it won't be easy, it will be worth it. Life's not easy, but it's worth it. Take care.